Lando Norris just crossed the finish line thinking the championship was his. But just minutes later, the FIA launched a full-scale investigation into his car. The shocking findings? Illegal modifications were detected on Norris' McLaren, and this is not a minor breach. We're talking about post-race disqualification levels of illegal. And here's the kicker: if the penalty goes through, Max Verstappen could be crowned world champion retroactively. The title may not be over, it could be flipped overnight. The tension inside McLaren's garage is off the charts. The FIA is preparing final sanctions, and the entire F1 world is holding its breath. Subscribe to the channel now to stay ahead of every twist before the trophy changes hands. McLaren walked into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix with momentum, confidence, and everything on the line. Lando Norris had driven a near-perfect race, consistent lap times, tire preservation that mirrored a championship veteran, and a strategy call that, on the surface, seemed flawless. But once the checkered flag dropped and the celebrations began, a quiet alarm was already sounding in the FIA's post-race inspection bay. The car Norris drove had caught the attention of the technical delegates, and what they found, just hours later, has now exploded into a full-blown controversy. The issue centers around the floor legality of Norris' MCL38, a component heavily scrutinized under current aerodynamic regulations. After the race, routine plank wear tests and floor deflection checks revealed discrepancies that pushed beyond the allowable threshold. Specifically, the FIA discovered deformation levels suggesting a breach of Article 3.5.9 of the Technical Code, which governs how much flexibility is permitted in the car's underbody. This rule exists to prevent teams from artificially lowering ride height under high-speed loads, a tactic that creates more downforce without triggering aerodynamic penalties. The FIA now suspects McLaren exploited this very loophole. It's not the first time this kind of investigation has shaken the paddock. But what makes this situation more volatile is that a championship outcome is directly in play. If Norris' car is declared non-compliant, the penalty is clear: disqualification from the race. And that means the driver who finished second, Max Verstappen, would be retroactively declared the winner of both the race and potentially the World Championship. This is no longer a question of legality. It is a question of rewriting F1 history, days after the checkered flag fell. McLaren, of course, is pushing back hard. Their defense hinges on multiple technical factors, including track surface variability and potential measurement tolerances in the FIA's equipment. Sources close to Woking say the team believes the floor passed all internal simulations and setup thresholds before the race. But FIA inspectors reportedly found irregular floor compression marks and a pattern of wear that could not be explained by natural degradation. In a sport where millimeters make the difference between innovation and violation, McLaren may have unknowingly crossed a line. For Verstappen and Red Bull, the developments are stunning. Verstappen had already voiced frustration after the race, citing possible inconsistencies in McLaren's top-end speed and traction performance. Now, with the FIA confirming a post-race illegality, everything is back in play. Red Bull has remained officially silent, but inside the team, there is quiet optimism. If the disqualification is formalized, Verstappen would clinch yet another title, not through domination, but through procedural justice. And that, in Formula One, can be just as decisive. Meanwhile, social media has ignited with speculation, leaks, and intense debate. Former drivers, engineers, and analysts are picking apart the floor images released by the FIA. Zoomed-in shots of Norris' car from lap 60 are being scrutinized for signs of grounding, and theories are swirling about whether McLaren used a semi-active compliance system to skirt floor stiffness restrictions. The drama is no longer just technical, it is psychological, political, and existential for everyone involved in this fight. As we await the official decision from FIA headquarters, one thing is clear: the championship is no longer just about pace on track. It's about precision in compliance, clarity in regulation, and courage under fire. McLaren's title hopes may hang by a thread, while Verstappen waits to see if the trophy he thought was gone is suddenly his once more. This is not the ending anyone expected, and it might not be over yet. The issue facing McLaren is not only technical, it is reputational. In Formula One, performance always lives in a gray zone, but compliance does not. The FIA's report is clear in its language: the Norris-driven MCL38 exhibited non-compliant structural behavior under post-race deflection tests. That means the car failed to meet the minimum rigidity standards that all teams are required to observe, no matter the performance gain. And when this failure occurs on the floor, a critical aerodynamic surface, the implications go far beyond just a fine or reprimand. It's disqualification territory. This scandal doesn't exist in a vacuum. In 2023 and 2024, the FIA warned multiple teams about pushing the limits of floor flexibility after controversial findings involving Red Bull and Mercedes. McLaren, having stayed clear of any such incidents until now, may have gambled with ride height setups in pursuit of outright pace on the Yas Marina circuit. Trackside data shows that Norris was able to consistently brake later and carry more minimum speed through corners than expected, and this now appears linked to a floor that offered too much aerodynamic compliance. In a circuit as smooth as Abu Dhabi, that flexibility becomes a dangerous weapon. As soon as the FIA's findings were leaked, the situation spiraled. Journalists in the paddock received information that FIA scrutineers had concerns about the floor after FP3 even before qualifying. If that's true, the big question is why the car wasn't flagged earlier. One theory is that the data collected was borderline, and only the full race load generated on Sunday revealed the illegal behavior. But critics are now questioning how many laps Norris drove with a component that may have given him an unfair aerodynamic edge. In a sport obsessed with fairness, that is a brutal blow. And let's be clear, this isn't just about Norris. It's about what McLaren knew, when they knew it, and how deep the setup choice went inside their engineering hierarchy. Did the team knowingly push beyond what was legal? Was it a miscalculation in CFD simulations or ride height tolerances? Or was it the result of an aggressive setup call made in desperation on race day? These are the questions now being asked not just by the FIA, but by rival teams, especially Red Bull and Ferrari, who may now feel that their championship campaigns were compromised by an illegal competitor. The FIA is under pressure too. After previous controversies including the infamous 2021 Abu Dhabi finale, the governing body cannot afford even a shadow of inconsistency. They've been aggressive in wording and fast in escalation, indicating that this is not a case of minor infringement. Post-race inspections are rarely reversed unless there is indisputable technical evidence. And based on insider sources, the FIA has enough data, telemetry, and deflection metrics to justify a penalty of the highest order. That could include full disqualification, points reversal, or even team sanctions going into the 2026 season. Meanwhile, McLaren's rivals are moving quickly. Red Bull is preparing legal counsel, Ferrari is reportedly analyzing telemetry from their own cars to compare plankwear, and even Mercedes, now out of the title fight, has joined the protest. This has become a political firestorm inside the paddock, where championship stakes intersect with regulatory interpretation. If Norris keeps the race win, the backlash could be unprecedented. But if the penalty is enforced, it will create a new controversy, a title decided not on track, but in the FIA courtroom. For Lando Norris, it's a nightmare scenario. He had delivered one of the best performances of his career under the brightest lights of the season. But if the car that carried him to that podium was not legal, his celebration could turn to scandal. And worse still, the shadow of Verstappen looms behind him. The Dutchman, ever the opportunist, could now walk away with the championship without even touching the car again. This isn't just a race result under review. It's the entire legacy of a title season, and it's crumbling under the weight of a carbon floor and a single rulebook paragraph. To understand how McLaren ended up under FIA investigation, we must dive beneath the surface, literally to the most complex aerodynamic component of modern Formula One machinery, the floor. In today's technical regulations, the floor is the single most influential element for generating downforce. It works by managing airflow under the car, creating a low-pressure zone that effectively sucks the car to the ground. The tighter the seal, the more grip a team can extract without relying on drag-inducing wings. The problem? That benefit only comes if the floor remains within the FIA's strict deformation limits, and McLaren may have crossed that line. McLaren's 2025 car, the MCL38, has been praised throughout the season for its aggressive underbody architecture. Their engineers introduced a new floor design mid-season that featured longer venturi tunnels, stiffer strakes, and advanced edge winglets to improve flow conditioning. But at Yas Marina, things took an even bolder turn. Trackside sources confirmed the team introduced a revised floor mounting system aimed at allowing microflex under peak load. While not illegal in theory, the execution is where things became murky. The FIA's post-race tests revealed that Norris floor flexed more than allowed when subjected to vertical load tests, a clear breach of the deformation rules. Technically, teams are allowed up to a specific millimeter of flexibility but not beyond. The rule is designed to prevent cars from running excessively low ride heights under aerodynamic load, which can give a significant lap time advantage, particularly on smoother tracks like Abu Dhabi. McLaren's setup, according to insiders, was designed to exploit this threshold without triggering alarms. But as the FIA's measurements showed, whereon Norris' floor plank was irregular and overly asymmetric, suggesting the car's rake angle was being manipulated mid-run by a flexing underbody. This is not a trivial gain. In the world of F1, 1 millimeter of ride height can be worth 2 to 3/10 of a second per lap. This is where the controversy deepens. Unlike wings or DRS mechanisms, floor flex is almost impossible to detect during a race. It requires high-precision jigs, laser measurement tools, and sometimes post-race disassembly. McLaren's design team may have believed the deformation was within legal limits, especially given the car had passed previous checks during Friday and Saturday's sessions. But once the fuel loads increased and the tires hit optimal pressure during Sunday's Grand Prix, the floor may have flexed beyond its calibration range, producing illegal aerodynamic behavior. That's why the FIA's Sunday inspection was so decisive. It was the only time the car was tested under full race load conditions. In fact, several engineers from rival teams have pointed out that McLaren's race pace in Abu Dhabi was suspiciously strong. Norris maintained high corner speeds in Sector 2, particularly in turns 11 through 14, where lateral stability is critical. Onboard footage revealed minimal porpoising, consistent grip, and unusually strong rotation at low speed. When correlated with tire data, it suggested the rear of the car was sitting lower than expected, a classic sign of a flexing floor. That kind of grip management is gold in a season finale, especially when every 10th counts in a championship-deciding race. And here lies the ethical dilemma. Pushing the rules to the limit is part of F1's DNA. The most iconic teams have always flirted with the edge of legality. But when a design crosses from clever into illegal, the consequences are massive. McLaren knew they were threading the needle. Their engineers, as brilliant as they are, made a choice to prioritize performance, likely believing they would stay within technical margins. But the FIA's job is not to evaluate intention, it is to enforce measurement. And in this case, the numbers did not lie. Now, with the world watching, the burden of proof sits on both sides. McLaren must explain how a car so precisely developed could produce such a regulatory violation. The FIA, on the other hand, must prove that this breach materially impacted performance in a way that merits disqualification. This is more than a technical story, it's a defining moment of the 2025 season. Because if Verstappen is handed the title through this ruling, it will not only be a championship decided by speed but by the finest tolerances of modern engineering.